Dillon Gabriel played clean, efficient football in the Browns' dominant win over Miami. But that wasn't the story people left talking about. The real conversation centered on what didn't happen. Shedeur Sanders never took the field. Even up by 25, the coaching staff held the line. But inside the organization, pressure was rising. Jimmy Haslam's influence is now unmistakable, reportedly pressing Stefanski to make the call.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Everyone else is already expecting. The challenge isn't just about naming a starter. It's about surviving the consequences of whatever decision they make. As they prepare for New England, the franchise is approaching a tipping point. One more game of silence, one more week of narrative control, could break the locker room's cohesion. Either they trust Sanders and make the move, or risk alienating a fan base already teetering between excitement and distrust. The clock isn't ticking on Gabriel. It's ticking on the Browns' ability to lead with conviction. The Cleveland Browns dropped 31 points on the Miami Dolphins in what should have been a clean, dominant victory. No drama, no distractions, just football. But in true Browns fashion, it wasn't the blowout that had everyone talking. It was who didn't play. Shedeur Sanders. As the scoreboard widened and the crowd swelled with chants calling his name, Shedeur remained parked on the sideline, helmet on, unmoved. The Browns were up big. The game was out of reach. But still, Kevin Stefanski wouldn't put him in. Not even for a single drive. And now the storyline isn't about a convincing win. It's about a franchise terrified of its own future. Publicly, Stefanski defended his decision with words that sounded more like a warning than an explanation. He didn't want to disrespect Dillon Gabriel, the starter. He wanted to avoid what he called unnecessary distractions. What he didn't say out loud, but what everyone now understands, is that this wasn't entirely his decision. Because behind the scenes, Jimmy Haslam was already stirring the pot. The Browns owner reportedly pushed Stefanski to play Sanders. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't behind closed doors for long. Haslam wants him in the game. He wants the media magnet, the ticket seller, the potential superstar with a famous name and a highlight reel waiting to happen. He sees the value, the brand power, the upside, and he wants it now. That pressure from the top has turned a basic quarterback depth chart into a full-blown crisis. Because when ownership starts meddling in coaching decisions, it doesn't stay contained. It spreads. The locker room hears it. The coaching staff feels it. The media amplifies it. And fans? They lose patience fast. This whole thing blew open because of what didn't happen in garbage time. That's how sensitive the Browns have become. They're so afraid of what Shedeur Sanders represents, attention, noise, expectation, that they're now actively avoiding giving him any snaps, even in a game that was over by halftime. That fear speaks volumes. It's not that the coaching staff doubts Sanders' talent. It's that they doubt their ability to manage what comes after he plays. Because if he takes the field and even flashes, one deep throw, one electric scramble, the conversation shifts overnight. And Dillon Gabriel? He goes from starter to placeholder in a single weekend. That's the reality the Browns are hiding from. And it's not sustainable. Inside the building, there's this almost paralyzing fear of what they call the circus. The media attention, the non-stop headlines, the Dion questions, the social media blowback. They've built up the Sanders narrative into something so volatile that playing him feels like lighting a match in a fireworks factory. But that's the problem. When you treat a backup quarterback like a forbidden topic, you only increase the pressure. You raise the stakes. You turn every non-decision into a statement. The Browns aren't managing a depth chart anymore. They're managing a crisis of identity. And let's be clear, this isn't just a football problem. It's an organizational dilemma that reflects everything broken about how modern franchises try to navigate public perception. The Browns are no longer making decisions based purely on performance. They're making decisions based on optics, on media timing, on who's trending. They've turned narrative control into strategy. That's why they didn't play Sanders. Not because of some deep trust in Gabriel, and not because it wasn't the right moment, but because they didn't want to deal with the fallout. They were afraid of the shift, afraid of what it would say, afraid of what it would start. And now, the shift is happening anyway. Because when fans start chanting for your backup quarterback in the middle of a win, you've already lost control of the moment. And when the media starts reporting that your owner is forcing the coach's hand, you've lost control of the room. The Patriots game coming up isn't just another game on the schedule. It's a boiling point. Because if Gabriel stumbles, even a little, there's no more buffer, no more excuses, no more time. And it won't just be Haslam applying pressure this time. It'll be the fans. It'll be the locker room. It'll be the ESPN desk segments and the local beat writers and the post-game call-in shows. The Browns will have no choice but to stop delaying what everyone already sees coming. The truth is, Shedeur Sanders was always going to play. This franchise didn't bring him in to ride the bench. You don't add that kind of spotlight and expect silence. The only question was when, and the longer they pushed it off, the louder it got. What's worse is that by avoiding it for so long, the Browns have robbed themselves of control over how it happens. They could have introduced him in a calm, low-stakes situation, a few snaps in a blowout, a quiet rollout. But now, the moment will come with pressure, scrutiny, hype, and they'll have no one to blame but themselves. They're treating his first appearance like a gamble, but the real gamble has been avoiding him altogether. And the cost of that gamble is rising. Because here's what happens if the Browns lose to the Patriots or even just look shaky. Stefanski becomes the fall guy. Haslam's influence becomes the story. And Sanders becomes the only solution people want to talk about. It turns one organizational delay into a franchise-altering decision. And that's not just speculation. It's how this team has operated repeatedly, trying to micromanage chaos until the chaos becomes unmanageable. This isn't about whether Shedeur Sanders is ready. It's about whether the Browns are ready to stop hiding behind process and deal with reality. Every franchise eventually has to confront the moment where the PR strategy runs out of road, where they can't spin the storyline any further, where they have to choose between the safe option and the bold move. That moment is now. They can't keep shielding Gabriel forever. They can't keep silencing Sanders' presence with weak excuses. They can't keep telling fans that everything's under control while reports leak that the owner is dictating lineup decisions. Because that's the type of dysfunction that doesn't stay behind the scenes. It surfaces. It lingers. It defines seasons. And the longer the Browns try to suppress it, the more damage they do, not just to the quarterback room, but to their credibility. The fans see it. The media sees it. The players feel it. If the team caves to Haslam's pressure, it becomes a coaching credibility issue. If they ignore it and things go south, it becomes a leadership crisis. Either way, the Browns are staring down a decision that will shape not just their season, but their entire direction as a franchise. The game against New England isn't just a matchup. It's a test of nerve, of conviction, of whether this organization has the guts to finally make a call and live with it. Shedeur Sanders is the future. Whether he's ready right now or not isn't even the point anymore. The point is that the Browns brought him here, then panicked about what that meant. They tried to delay the fallout. Now the fallout is all that's left. Let us know what you think. Should Shedeur have been given snaps against the Dolphins? Is Jimmy Haslam stepping in helping or hurting the team? And if the Patriots game goes sideways, does Stefanski have any option but to give in? Hit like if you're following this quarterback chaos. Drop a comment with your take. And subscribe if you want the next chapter in this ongoing Browns drama. Because one way or another, the Sanders era is coming. Whether Cleveland's ready for it or not. There's no turning back now. When the chants started raining down from the upper decks of Cleveland Browns Stadium, Shedeur. It wasn't just a moment. It was a message. Loud, unified, and completely unavoidable. It didn't matter that the scoreboard read 31-6. It didn't matter that Dillon Gabriel had played a solid, if unspectacular, game. What mattered was the unspoken agreement between tens of thousands of fans and the echo chamber of the media. Shedeur Sanders' time has come. And yet nothing. No helmet tap. No QB switch. No nod from Kevin Stefanski. Shedeur stood there on the sideline, as stoic as ever, absorbing the noise but not reacting to it. Because he knew, just like everyone else watching, that this wasn't about whether he was ready. This was about a franchise that's paralyzed by its own potential. Let's be very clear here. The Browns didn't win the game against Miami so much as Miami lost it. Cleveland did what they were supposed to do. They took care of business. But when you're up by 4 touchdowns and the crowd is begging to see your backup quarterback, that's not just noise. That's a referendum. And instead of riding the momentum, the Browns went into hiding. Stefanski walked into the post-game press conference and tried to downplay it. He mentioned structure, continuity, the importance of respecting Dillon Gabriel's role. All technically reasonable answers. But they rang hollow. Because the subtext, the part everyone actually heard, was simple. We're scared to unleash what comes next. And at this point, that fear is more damaging than any interception Sanders could throw. Because we all know the truth. This wasn't about protecting Gabriel. It wasn't about locker room chemistry. It wasn't about waiting for the right time. It was about avoiding the spotlight. About dodging the storm that Shedeur brings simply by existing. The media circus. The non-stop commentary. The comparisons to his father. The questions that follow every snap, every throw, every decision. But what the Browns don't seem to understand is that the circus is already here. The longer they try to keep Shedeur on ice, the hotter it gets. The chants get louder. The leaks get messier. The pressure builds. The Patriots game? That's not just weak, whatever. That's a crucible. The air is already heavy, and we're still days out. And now, with reports swirling that Jimmy Haslam personally intervened, pressuring Stefanski to play Sanders, the Browns have crossed a line you can't uncross. Ownership meddling in personnel decisions isn't just a bad look. It's a kind of thing that fractures locker rooms, destabilizes coaching staffs, and turns smart football minds into PR operators. It means game plans aren't being drawn up on whiteboards. They're being negotiated in boardrooms. Haslam's direct involvement moves this saga from controversy to crisis. Because whether Stefanski plays Sanders or not, people will say it wasn't his decision. And that alone is a disaster for a head coach trying to command respect. Players aren't blind. They see what's happening. They know when leadership is divided. And when the owner is calling down from the suite with personnel demands, the message is clear. We're not playing football anymore. We're playing politics. The Browns now find themselves in a trap entirely of their own making. They have 2 quarterbacks and no control over the narrative. They tried to outmaneuver the moment, delay it, minimize it. But it backfired. Spectacularly. Because in trying to suppress the Sanders effect, they've actually made it bigger. The fans aren't waiting patiently. They're demanding change. The media isn't speculating quietly. They're interrogating every play. And Jimmy Haslam? He's turned the volume up even higher by inserting himself into the most sensitive position battle in the league. It's no longer a debate about talent. It's a crisis of leadership. And so here we are, with the quarterback who hasn't taken a single professional snap, somehow holding more influence over the franchise than the guy currently starting. That's not normal. That's not sustainable. And that's not going away. Every hour that passes between now and kickoff against the Patriots is just more fuel. If Dillon Gabriel so much as throws an incomplete pass on the first drive, the crowd will erupt. If the Browns fall behind early, forget it. The tension will be unbearable. And if they lose, with Sanders on the sideline again, the fan base may fully turn. Not just on Gabriel, on Stefanski, on the organization, on anyone who refused to acknowledge what's been obvious for weeks. You can't bench momentum. You can't sit on potential forever. And you definitely can't keep ignoring the fact that your backup quarterback is the most talked about player on your team. The Browns aren't protecting their culture by sidelining Sanders. They're exposing their fear. And fear is contagious. It spreads. It clouds judgment. It makes every decision feel like damage control instead of strategy. That's what we're seeing now. What's wild is that all of this could have been avoided. The Dolphins game was a gift. The perfect opportunity to test the waters. Low stakes, high upside. But instead, the Browns passed. And in doing so, they handed the narrative to everyone else. The fans? They've made their position crystal clear. They believe in Shedeur. Whether that belief is premature doesn't even matter anymore, because it's already taken root. And once the fan base decides that you're the problem, it's only a matter of time. The media? They're circling like hawks. Every interview, every comment, every Instagram post. It's all being dissected through the lens of this quarterback drama. And it's not going away, no matter how many times Stefanski says the depth chart hasn't changed. And Jimmy Haslam? He's done playing it cool. He wants results. He wants buzz. He wants to see the quarterback his franchise took a risk on before this thing spirals further out of control. So what happens now? Either the Browns embrace the shift, or they crumble trying to avoid it. There's no more neutral ground. No more wait and see. That window slammed shut when Stefanski ignored a stadium full of fans chanting for the quarterback he's too afraid to play. The Patriots game will be the inflection point. If the Browns win and Gabriel looks sharp, maybe they buy themselves another week. But if they stumble, if the offense stalls out, if Sanders stays benched again, this whole thing goes nuclear. At that point, Stefanski won't be able to hide behind structure and respect and timing. Because the Browns aren't just on the verge of a quarterback switch. They're on the verge of an identity crisis. And the longer they try to control the narrative from the top down, the more fractured this team becomes. They can't keep pretending this is about football. It's not. It's about perception, about pressure, about ownership, about fear. And in this league, when you start coaching out of fear, you lose everything. So let's see what the Browns do when the pressure hits a full boil. Because it's coming. Fast. And if they think they can ride this out in silence, they haven't been paying attention. The storm's already here. This team is teetering. Not just on the edge of a quarterback decision, but on the edge of something bigger. Something messier. Something the Browns refuse to say out loud, but everyone else can feel coming from a mile away. This is about control. The organization is at war with its own reflection. They wanted the buzz that came with Shedeur Sanders. They wanted the national attention, the jersey sales, the maybe this is our guy headlines. But they didn't want the pressure. They didn't want the expectations. They definitely didn't want the outside noise dictating internal moves. But that's what happens when you bring in a name like Sanders and then try to treat him like any other backup. You can't do that. Shedeur Sanders isn't a developmental project you stash quietly in the background. He's not some mid-round rookie you trot out in preseason and forget about. He's a brand. And brands demand attention. That's the part Cleveland seems to have underestimated. And now, they're scrambling. The Dolphins game, what should have been a textbook we handled business moment, has now become the spark for a fire they can't contain. A 31-6 win turned into a PR disaster. Not because of what happened on the field, but because of who didn't step on it. There's no more dodging the truth. The Browns mishandled this. They overplayed the need for calm and structure, and underplayed the need for decisive leadership. And when the lights were brightest and the opportunity was there, they froze. You don't get many chances like that in the NFL. And now, with the Patriots game looming, they're walking straight into a trap of their own making. If Dylan Gabriel struggles and Shedeur Sanders still doesn't play, they risk full-blown mutiny from the fan base. If Sanders does play and plays well, they'll have to explain why they held him back this long. That's the thing about trying to control a moment. You lose control the second it becomes bigger than you. And it already has. Jimmy Haslam stepping in and pressuring Stefanski to play Sanders wasn't some isolated move. It was a signal that this isn't just about the coaching staff anymore. It's about the power dynamics in the building. The owner wants the star on the field. The coach wants to keep his structure intact. And caught in the middle is a team that's already feeling the weight of the moment. There's no right answer anymore. Just a series of bad choices that all lead to different kinds of fallout. And let's be real, the locker room sees everything. Players know when a coach is making a call out of fear. They know when ownership is interfering. They know when fans are turning. And once that trust erodes, once players sense that decisions are being made based on politics instead of performance, that's when you lose the room. The Browns are walking that razor's edge right now. One wrong move in New England, and the bottom falls out, not because of one game, but because of everything that's led up to it. Because this has never just been about football. It's about the Browns once again showing that when it comes to handling pressure, they crack. That when the spotlight hits, they panic. That when they need to make the bold move, they blink. And now, because they blinked in Miami, they're cornered in Foxborough. Here's what's likely to happen. If Gabriel opens flat, or if the Browns fall behind early, the Sanders chants will start up again, maybe louder than ever. The cameras will cut to him. The commentators will speculate. And the pressure will explode. If Stefanski still refuses to put him in at that point, it won't be read as loyalty to the plan. It'll be seen as defiance. Or worse, fear. But if he caves, puts Sanders in mid-game, and the rookie performs, then that's it. The page turns. The team pivots. And the new era begins, under a spotlight that's been waiting for him since day one. But here's what matters even more than who starts or finishes this game. What message does this send? Because when ownership is calling plays from the luxury suite, and the coaching staff is caught between fan pressure and franchise politics, what does that say about the stability of the team? What does that say about accountability? What does it say about whether anyone is actually in charge? Right now, all signs point to confusion. Stefanski has publicly stated that Gabriel is the guy for now. Haslam clearly disagrees. The fan base is fed up. The media has already moved on to when, not if. And Shedeur? He's doing what he's supposed to, staying ready, staying quiet. But make no mistake, his presence alone has upended this team's balance. And you don't fix that with vague coach speak and week-to-week decisions. You fix it by facing the moment. Head on. No more stalling. No more excuses. No more pretending this isn't happening. Because the longer the Browns act like this is still under control, the more obvious it becomes that it isn't. Every minute Shedeur spends on the sideline is another reminder that this team isn't being led. It's being dragged through a media minefield with no clear direction. And that's how seasons unravel. Not through one bad decision, but through indecision. And the Browns? They're masters of it. Year after year, new faces, same chaos. New quarterbacks, same confusion. And now they've got a player who could finally bring stability, energy, hope, but they're too afraid to try. Because if he fails, it's on them. But if he succeeds, they'll have to admit they waited too long. So here's where we're at. One game, one decision, one quarterback, and a franchise hanging in the balance. Let us know what you do. Should the Browns hand the reins to Sanders now, or wait until things completely fall apart? Is Stefanski protecting his team, or protecting himself? And is Haslam stepping up as a bold leader, or stepping over the coaching staff? Drop your take in the comments. Hit that like if you're following this saga like a playoff game, and subscribe if you want more breakdowns of the biggest messes in sports. Because in Cleveland right now, this isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a full-blown power struggle, dressed up like a depth chart.